Raise your fists together. I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Red and yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop bullying. Save the children.
Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
The push is on. We are once again grateful to be in your home, your car, wherever you are, your apartment, on the job. And today on our Saturday Forum, first thing first, we're celebrating women all month. It's Women History Month. We're going to be talking to some women that are actually making history now, telling her story. Secondly, we're going to spend some time down in Selma. Our entire push staff is in Selma. They left me here. But nevertheless, Reverend Jackson is going to be crossing the bridge and also leading a march to Montgomery as we continue to fight for the right to vote. It's under attack, you all. Voter suppression laws are at an all-time high. And again, we have work to do. Over 50 years later, we are still fighting for the right to vote in this country. And so we want you to stay tuned again and get some good information, some insight, and most of all, some inspiration. Today, we want to say happy birthday to Harry Belafonte, who celebrated his 95th year of life. And so we thank you, Harry Belafonte, for every contribution you've made throughout the hallways of history. And so again, the push is on. I'm Reverend William Hall. I'm the pastor of the St. James Community Church here in Chicago, and I'm a son of push and a son of this movement. And so I want you to tell somebody, tweet somebody, text somebody, because the push is on. And as we always do, check in right now, wherever you're from. Type your city, especially wherever you are across the world. We want to connect with you because we're in satellite cities all across, and we're doing work all across the world. And so again, subscribe if you have not already to Push, Rainbow Push right there on YouTube so that you can replay this broadcast. All right, y'all, we got a lot of work to do. Next up is none other than a young man who's expressing his gift. So bring the family together for this moment. And this moment is for the entire family, instructed by and created by Tim Lee.
Think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Oprah Winfrey.
You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas. Shirley Chisholm.
Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. Harriet Tubman.
Believe in yourself, learn, and never stop wanting to build a better world. Mary McLeod Bethune. Success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. Maya Angelou. I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. Angela Davis.
If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Shirley Chisholm.
We have power and potential in our youth, and we must have the courage to change our old ideas and practices so that we may direct their power towards good ends. Mary McLeod Bethune.
Nobody's free until everybody's free. Danny New Haven.
Black girls, don't be afraid to use your voice, your thoughts, your opinions, your ideas. They matter just like everybody else's. When you speak, speak with boldness, speak with purpose, have courage, be confident, and always be true to yourself. Your voice matters, and so do you. Stephanie Lahart.
Don't sit down waiting for the opportunities to come. Get up and make them. Madam C.J. Walker.
You can pray until you faint, but unless you get up and do something about it, God is not going to put it in your life. Then you will faint.
Greetings, friends. This is Dr. Joseph Bryant Jr., the Executive Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition Silicon Valley Bay Area office, and all of our diversity and inclusion programs are a part of what is known as Push Tech. It is always such an honor to be a part of this conversation and to be able to highlight some of the amazing things that we have the privilege of doing under the leadership of our amazing trailblazer, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. We know Reverend Jackson is moving into this month doing some wonderful things, particularly in the city of Selma, Alabama, where my family is from, my parents are from, marching across that Edmund Pettus Bridge and reminding us that the battles from decades ago are still happening today. We are still fighting for our place, our rights, our seat at the table, and Reverend Jackson continues to lead the charge. And for this, we are so eternally grateful. I'm so thankful to be able to serve also as the National Sports Director for Rainbow Push. And many of you saw that the NBA honored Reverend Jackson a couple of weeks ago in Cleveland for the All-Star Weekend. We are also working this month with former NBA player Etan Thomas and his foundation. They are doing a virtual HBCU student athlete tour. And Reverend Jackson has given words of encouragement to the student athletes to make sure that they use their platform for the greater good. Reverend Jackson has always been a part of the mentoring of athletes for generations, going back to Bill Russell and Kareem and Jackie Robinson and so many others that he has worked with, Jim Brown, over the years historically, and even in more modern days as he continues to help athletes see their value in doing great work to impact community. And so we thank Etan for allowing us to be a part of this virtual student athlete tour this month. And we're supporting that effort to make sure that athletes know that they are more than an athlete, but they can use that platform to impact our community in significant ways. And then, of course, because we are here in Silicon Valley, we're getting close. Spring is upon us, and we are getting ready for our 7th annual Push Tech Summit. And it used to be called Push Tech 2020, and 2020 wasn't about a number. That's 2020 as vision, perfect vision that allows us to see a better reality with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so that's what we're calling the conference, the Push Tech Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Conference. It'll be held virtually on May the 4th and the 5th. And again, we're thankful that Reverend Jackson has had such insight. We've seen the shift of many companies embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it's no longer just diversity and inclusion, it's DEI. And we have for years heard Reverend Jackson talk about equity and the reality of us not only being able to have an open door, but be able to have an equitable share of many of the opportunities that these companies have to offer. And so our conference will be May 4th and 5th. We will be sending out information to our audiences, but we do want to give a shout out to one of our partners. We are very thankful for the partnership between Rainbow Push and Meta, formerly known as Facebook, and their commitment to including Rainbow Push in so many of their initiatives to open the doors of opportunity. They have had conversations with Reverend Jackson to help navigate these waters, and they are doing a wonderful job, including us in some of their programmatic specific elements of engagement for the Black and Brown community. And so we're grateful to be a part of Elevate, an outstanding digital program put on by Meta. And we are offering to you the opportunity to be trained by our Push Tech trainers that have been trained by those that are part of the Meta Facebook world. We were offering you 4 sessions. If you're looking for a job, if you're looking for experience, you're looking to learn more about digital ads and social media and how to maximize your online presence as a business or as an entrepreneur, we want to offer you trainings beginning March 16th. You can sign up today for this free training experience where we can prepare you to have impact through Facebook ads and other means that are free on the internet. And then we will offer at the end of the 4 sessions a scholarship to the Facebook Elevate digital certification program. We are so excited to be able to offer those to you. So for everyone that goes through our 4-session training, our ramp up, if you will, to get you ready for digital certification, we will present you a scholarship that will allow you to go into the training program with Facebook for free and maximize your platform. Here's some more information about the Facebook Elevate program. We are grateful for the partnership and grateful that under this wonderful vision that is continuously lifted by our leader, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, we can always keep hope alive. Here's Elevate and keep rising.
Rainbow Push Silicon Valley's Push Tech has partnered with Facebook to bring you Elevate, an industry-recognized digital marketing certification. This enables you to market and manage Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Plus, you get access to a private job board hosted by Facebook and a network support group made up of Facebook employees and thousands of marketers, giving you direct access to industry and platform experts. Our Push Tech team walks you through the process of becoming certified from start to finish, because your success is our mission. Don't wait, now's the time. Start or boost your career and your future. Amplify your voice as a creator and earn money for doing what you love. Organizations, we want to partner with you and bring this opportunity to your community. So come visit us online at rainbowpushsv.org. Classes start in March. Let us elevate your future.
We're excited to pivot a bit as it relates to Push Excel with regards to the title for our series. It is our critical thinking series entitled Reimagining or Redesigning America's Education Agenda. And we want you to know that the use of the term critical thinking was one that we spent a lot of time focused on, because we want to make sure that our participating audience recognize that our panelists are prepared to go beyond the surface level as it relates to the topics and the issues that will be raised throughout our series. And we are committed to, again, serving as thought leaders for the nation as it relates to some of the critical issues that are occurring. Thank you all. We are so honored, and we're getting ready to jump right in with both feet. Dr. Charlie Wilson, I'd like us to address the elephant in our virtual room. And I'd like to say humbly that the elephant in our virtual room would be associated with the fierce political debate that is occurring nationwide relevant to the use of the term critical race theory. Now, the reality is that some might have us believe that critical race theory is being taught in K-12 educational institutions. And I'd like to once again go on the record and say that critical race theory is actually not being taught in America's K-12 educational institutions. And so with that being said, it is important to also recognize that what is being taught, what Dr. Akua in particular was actually referring to, is culturally responsive teaching, which also has the acronym CRT, which is very different from CRT associated with critical race theory. Critical race theory is being taught in graduate school. It is being taught in law school. The study or the thinking, I'll call it the thought leader, Derek Bell, behind critical race theory came up with the notion, or more respectfully, the theory, after he began to notice the injustices in the criminal justice system as it relates to how African Americans were treated in comparison to their peers. So again, so that we may move forward, I wanted to address the elephant in the room and to suggest once again that critical race theory is actually not being taught in our K-12 educational institution, and yet it remains the source of heated political debate. Dr. Charlie Wilson, you have a ton of experience. You not only have you served as a school board member, but you've also served as the president of the National School Board Association. I can't think of anybody better to speak on this topic other than you at this moment in time. Dr. Wilson, can you tell us from your own perspective why this concept, this inaccurate use of the term critical race theory to display or to give one of the belief that it is occurring in our nation's K-12 educational institutions? Can you tell us why you think this discussion is even taking place, or why it's the source of fierce political debate from your perspective?
And I have thought very deeply about this issue. And as the superintendent of my school district said a few months ago, he has been involved in education his entire career, but he had never gone to law school. He never heard the term critical race theory until summer of 2020. And so why is that? I have no doubt the reason is that after the murder of George Floyd in late May of 2020, there were protests, demonstrations, action by people all over America, literally millions and millions of people in all parts of the country who were speaking up, talking out about the need for the first time of racial justice, addressing the issue of systemic racism and the power structure. And I have no doubt that it was seen as getting out of control among certain members of our society who did not want protests upsetting the status quo because they benefit from it. And as the person, Chris Ruffo, who initiated the term, has said in some interviews that woke wasn't being used well to gin up opposition to what was going on in the streets and in our discussions across the country about racial justice in the summer of 2020. Woke wasn't doing it. The term cancel culture wasn't getting lots of people out there. The term politically correct didn't do it. So he came up with the idea of critical race theory and thought it was the perfect term. He knew that it was not being taught, that it indeed could not be taught at a K-12 level. It's an advanced college, law school level course. But it was a term that in focus groups really got certain people fired up.
Dr. Kua, I'd like to bring you into this conversation, and I want to open up with something that you just said on a video presentation that you placed on your social media platform a few days ago. You stated, if you have been decentered from the best of your culture, then your patterns for interpreting reality will be skewed. Can you tell us what you meant by that?
Many of our students, schooling is a process that decenters them away from the best of their culture, rather than centering them in the best of their culture. And what happens in the process through miseducation and skillful media manipulation, they get taken far away from themselves. And so they haven't been taught about the best of their culture. They've been exposed to the worst of their culture. When I think about what happened with Miss Nelson's son, and shout out to her for the wonderful work of advocacy and activism that she did to change policy. But when I think about that situation, a skilled teacher who understands culturally relevant and responsive teaching could take her son's hairstyle and make a lesson of it on the role of hairstyles in Black culture and other cultures. And so there's so much to be said about that, about how cornrows, how locks make a certain statement, and how those different hairstyles defined certain periods of time for African Americans. And the suppression of being able to express ourselves in that way is deeply problematic. So one of the things that we have to understand is that teachers must be taught in these culturally relevant and responsive ways, because they cannot teach what they don't know. So let's bring some data into the conversation. In 2015, the National Center for Education and Statistics determined that for the first time in America's history, the majority of public school students are children of color, African American, Hispanic, Native American, Asian, and Pacific Islander. One more time, the majority of public school students are children of color. So while the population has changed, policies, procedures, and practices largely have not. In addition to that, even prior to the pandemic, you have a critical shortage of African American teachers and teachers of color. And that did not just happen by accident, that happened through intent. So, for example, the NEA reported years ago that over 39,000 Black leaders and teachers lost their positions in urban school districts. This was reported by the NEA many years ago. In Leslie Fenwick's new book, Jim Crow's Pink Slip, she demonstrates that it was actually over 100,000 Black leaders and teachers lost their positions due to the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education case. And so when you look at this critical shortage of Black teachers and leaders, when you look at the need that Black children and children of color have to see people who look like themselves in the classroom as models of intellectual authority, then it becomes very clear some of the policies that need to begin to change to rectify the situation.
Ida Nelson, Miss Nelson, you spent a lot of time listening, contributing, and listening. We've talked about this in many cases here from the perspective of educators. Can you talk with us about parent advocacy? How important is parent advocacy as it relates to the topics that have been raised thus far?
Yes. Well, I've been listening to everyone's responses, and a big missing piece is the parent. The school is a community. And from what I understand, of what I've learned, is the parent is a stakeholder as well. Mm-hmm. And so it's very important. It's really important that parents understand and activate their power, because a lot of the time parents feel like they've been rendered powerless, or they, are kind of just going through the motions and not really understanding how important it is that we show up for our children, even when it seems like they are doing well academically. It's more than just the academic implications. It's about the emotional intelligence being built into your children. It's about that sense of community. It's about that sense of self. And so I have been working to help to activate the understanding of the importance of the parents and how we show up for our children. And when you talk about policy, I've been in talks with some senators and just some other folk about policies that assist with activating the parental stakeholder, because as you all mentioned, the teachers are overwhelmed. The teachers spend a lot more time with the children than the parents are, because parents are working. But should there be a thought or consideration to how we can take a portion of that budget and activate something for parent liaisons or the parent advocates or the parents, that nurturing spirit that is missing from from the schools, so these are some of the things that are just, thoughts that come to my mind and issues of my heart.
While my distinguished panelists are preparing for their remarks, I'd like to make the participating audience aware, and we can make this report available on Push Excel's website, which you can get at pushexcel.org. But just hot off the press is a document entitled 10 Ways the Biden administration can advance equity for young learners today. And this research report was actually produced by the Children's Equity Project and the National Black Child Development Institute. And so moving toward recommendations, one of the 10 recommendations that they made for the federal level is to have the development of a federal equity technical assistance strategic plan. And what that means in a nutshell as it relates to recommendations is that, as opposed to having teachers afraid to as opposed to having teachers afraid to teach real American history, their recommendation that the federal government via the U.S. Department of Education actually earmark federal funds to ensure that the training is taking place in our nation's schools. So those of you who advocate, those of you who have access to political officials, talk to them about support for that. Another solid recommendation is centered around the need to develop a robust research agenda that addresses inequities and their historical roots. And they add that it is critical that research agendas and research analysis be examined through an equity lens. This means that all questions must be addressed within the context of demographics and geography with an understanding of the historical roots of inequities. Do you want to, Ms. Ida Nelson, take just a minute to give us what you would identify as some solid recommendations? And I believe you're actually implementing one because you're working to move the Jet Hawkins law in a different way across the nation. So can you frame your response in the terms of recommendations for next steps, please, ma'am?
Well, again, recommendation for next steps is to include the community stakeholders in the efforts to train to cultural sensitivity. There's no one that can teach you better how to respond to or interact with people or the children from my community than me. And so I think that that's a good recommendation. Involve people who actually don't look at the textbook. Let's come up at this from a common sense standpoint and involve the people who actually are experts or subject matter experts in this particular field.
I'm delighted to have this group of thought leaders with us, all who basically make major contributions to education. If there was an action item that I put out there is that parents need to run for school board. People need to run for school board. We don't need all these aspiring politicians who are posturing to run for school board. We need somebody who's got a kid in a classroom, who's got skin in the game. The way that the right wing has essentially established their political hegemony has been through school boards. And we're seeing it again with all this conversation about critical race theory. They don't know critical race theory from, their hind parts. But, and Sonia, I was very well behaved there. You know what I was going to say. But in any case, this is just a reaction to reality. We need progressive people, thoughtful people, factual people, Black people, brown people to run for school boards. That's my action item.
My suggestion is show me your budget and I will know your priorities. And so it comes down to if it's really important for you to have, as Ms. Nelson was saying, parental family engagement, spend money on it. What do I mean? Pay teachers to go to the homes of our parents and provide lunch or dinner. That is one way to get parental engagement. Don't wait for them to come to you. Or if you're not willing to go that far, provide babysitting, childcare, and meals and transportation so they can come to the teachers if the teachers aren't willing to go to the kids. So provide money. If you want to retain teachers of color, provide money. And I don't mean higher salaries. I mean the other kinds of things and time off. If you're going to put them on every committee, reduce their teaching loads. Give them opportunities, give them summer grants, give them, hey, how about maybe this is radical? How about occasionally giving a sabbatical to teachers that are overworked? We university professors get a sabbatical every 5 or 6 years because we work so hard and because we have to teach, 3 or 4 hours a week. And but K-12 teachers teach all day long, never get to leave, and we never give them sabbaticals. So if we really want to encourage people to come, we can do it. But it's a matter of budget. It's where your priorities are. If you spend your money on it, you'll get it. If you spend it wisely, you don't throw it away, but spend it wisely. There's a lot of ways to get parental engagement if you really want to get it. And as our chat audience has said, it's important that we get it, and it's really not that hard.
Just picking up what I heard Dr. Wilson say, really is demonstration beats conversation. And what I want to talk about in the way of solutions, again, goes back to the policy level. I had the opportunity to take a look at the special report, the 10 ways the Biden administration can advance equity. But one of the things that was missing that should be added, that to me should be point number one, And be mindful, we're in 2022. This should be a major talking point in the 2024 presidential elections. I spoke earlier about the decimation of the Black teacher and leader workforce to the tune of over 100,000 Black teachers and leaders. Targeted assassination of Black educational leaders and teachers requires targeted reparations. One more time, targeted assassinations requires targeted reparations, and demonstration beats conversation. So if you're serious about changing the reality, then there needs to be a policy that begins the repairing process of not just hiring and recruiting, but supporting Black teachers and leaders in that endeavor. As it was mentioned earlier, it's not just about recruitment, it's about retention. But don't just recruit me and don't just retain me to teach a curriculum that continues to miseducate and decenter my children. I should be recruited and retained to teach a culturally relevant and responsive curriculum so that my students can have the proper consciousness and competence that we want them to have. As I mentioned, we're in 2022. This should be one of the major talking points for presidential candidates for the 2024 presidential elections. Again, targeted assassination requires targeted reparations. Tell them to put their money where their mouth is.
And there you have it. We have reached the end of our program today, but I don't know about you, it sure does feel like the beginning. And speaking of the beginning, we want you to stay with us. Push Excel is committed to continuing our critical thinking series. Mark your calendar, because on March the 24th at 6:30 p.m., that is exactly what we'll do with a focus on mental health. We know that there is a lot occurring in our nation today as it relates to the mental health of adults, but also the mental health of the students in our schools. And so we're going to engage in a conversation about that. And we want you to join us by registering at pushexcel.org. And I would be remiss if I did not once again thank you so much to our distinguished panelists. You did an amazing job.
Push Excel's goal is to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal, family, and community challenges that they might experience. How do we do this? By advocating for educational policies that guarantee equal funding for all students without regard to race or economic standing. By engaging parents, students, and teachers in pursuing high-quality education and striving for educational excellence at every level. And by forging partnerships with community-based and public sector stakeholders in education. Now, Push Excel is a national model program with the purpose of connecting principals, parents, popular personalities, and students in a bond and to support students at every level on the educational ladder. Now, we want you to become a member of the Rainbow Push Coalition and Push Excel. Your annual membership can help us to change policies that impact students, colleges, and universities all around the country. So step up and sign up today. Membership is only $35, and if you're a student or a senior, $15. Just go to our website, rainbowpush.org, and push join to become a member or push donate to support the Push Excel program. You can also text the word Push Excel, that's PUSHEXCEL, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give us any amount that you feel comfortable giving or call us at 773-256-2775. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you. And remember to keep hope alive.
This is Bishop Tavis Grant, the National Field Director for the Rainbow Push Coalition. I want to thank you for being a part of our International Saturday Morning Forum. I don't want you to forget that you can join the fastest growing social justice, civil rights army in the world, following our iconic leader, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. Go to our website, www.rainbowpush.org, rainbowpush.org or follow us on all of our social media platforms. This is one of the most historic weekends of this year. It's Bloody Sunday, and it is the anniversary of the Selma to Montgomery March. You know, Dr. King and others, along with John Lewis, our beloved icon, who led 600 marchers in 1965 across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and the way they were confronted with brutality and inhumane and unjust measures that brought many of them to the doorstep of death, injury, and being physically maimed. John Lewis taught us what it means to get into some good trouble. And so this year, Reverend Jesse Jackson is leading on March 7th, the Selma to Montgomery March. It is 5 days. There are organizations from all over the country who are taking on a day: Rainbow Push, Poor People's Campaign, Transformative Justice, and many, many, many others. You can go to the Selma Jubilee website and get more information. But more importantly, we want you to know what this moment is all about. And what we're simply doing is we're continuing the legacy and the leadership of Dr. King, Reverend Jackson, and so many others in putting our feet in the street and raising our voices to be heard. And what's at stake is 39 million families who need critical aid and assistance. 800,000 seniors and disabled persons are waiting on Medicare waiting lists. You know, the George Floyd Justice Act is on the table. You know, the Freedom to Vote Act is on the table. The John Lewis Voting Advancement Act is on the table, which would guarantee that states, some 19 states, would have to go through pre-clearance before they move polls, before they marginalize votes, before they diminish early voting. And of course, there's the Electoral Count of Voting Act that's on the table. While they are trying to roll back and take back all that we've gained, this year we're declaring we want it all. If you want to join us, go to rainbowpush.org and join this army and join this organization. Your contribution and your participation means so much to us at a time where we're simply doing one thing: we're keeping hope alive.
Hey everybody, once again, we're grateful that you are with us. The push is on now, and today I have with me a very special guest, one who is leading and doing a great work, especially in the area of law. I want everyone to turn up their TVs, turn up your radio, wherever you're watching us, and I want you all to welcome Nakia Crosley. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you are doing a great work as the president of
the Black Women Lawyers Association of Greater Chicago.
That's right, BWLA. But before you even got into law, tell us your journey. How did you end up in law?
Well, I'm originally from PG County, Maryland.
Maryland in the house.
Right outside of D.C., yes. And I went to North Carolina A&T State University for journalism and mass communication.
HBCUs.
And in the summers, I would work as a legislative assistant at a lobbying firm. So I got a lot of opportunity to go up on Capitol Hill and see how lobbyists and lawyers shape law and policy. And so that was a heavy influence. I wish I could say it was ultimately a decision that I made, but I had some heavy influence from my mother, who helped me to make that decision to go to law school.
Wow, there's nothing like an amazing mother to push you and to encourage you. And so you go into law school, and I mean, you're doing well, right? And you're in this pool of just legality and interpreting the law, so forth and so on. But as we witness history, right? Like this is a moment, a defining moment in history to have a Black woman nominated to the highest court in the land. Tell us, when you heard, well, first of all, when you heard the news, what did it do for you when you heard? What was that moment like when you got the text, tweet, whatever it was that you got that news? What was that moment like?
Well, when I heard that President Biden was committing to ensuring that the next seat would be filled by a Black woman, I mean, for me, it's unbelievable. It's really amazing to just be in this era, right? Because we've got a Black woman vice president.
Absolutely.
We've had our first black male president and first black woman first lady. And to now have a black woman who's going to sit in the seat in the highest court of the land, it is just amazing.
What's the significance, in addition to her being the first black woman, what do you see in this moment that's bigger than, and it might be a source of inspiration?
Wow, I mean, this is huge. I mean, because as you said, we've had black men kind of already paving the way, right, through Thurgood Marshall and Clarence Thomas. But in its 233-year history, a black woman has never even been nominated for the Supreme Court.
Run that back.
In its 233-year history, a black woman has never been nominated. Not sat on the set, nominated. So that is huge in itself.
This is a very well-rounded candidate, one who has clerked, one who has been been on the front lines as a defender, and has even, fought for her family and got a legal victory for a family member dear to her. And so when we look at this moment, is one to remember. It's indeed history. But let's go back down your hallways of history, and where do you find inspiration? I mean, you're leading Black Women Lawyer Association, BWLA. I mean, Crane's 40 Under 40, amongst other things. You were named as one of the top 100 executives by Diversity magazine. I mean, there's just so many things. Where is your inspiration lie? How do you continue to fight the good fight?
That's a big question. My inspiration and the reason why I get up every morning, thankfully, is God. He keeps me humble. He keeps me grounded. He makes sure my vision is clear in terms of the path that He has set for me. And so that's how I walk every day. But I pull my inspiration from a lot of different people through my industry in energy, which is heavily white male. Finding those influences, particularly from minorities in that community, is essential to how I move and play in that environment. And then with BWLA, I mean, we come from a legacy. Just being 35 years old, our legacy is extremely rich. Our members, our founders, our past presidents are people like Z. Scott, the president of Chicago State University.
Right.
Judge Patricia Brown Holmes, who is the first Black woman managing partner of any large law firm that's not women or minority owned. Judge Ann Claire Williams, who's now retired, but she was the first judge of color to sit on the U.S.
Call
Circuit.
the roll.
Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit. I mean, the list goes on and on. Ambassador Carol Mosley Braun, who was the first Black woman to serve in the U.S. Senate. These are people that are really inspiring, and I feel really blessed to be in the position that I'm in.
So for those that are watching, that young girl that is watching today, or that young man that is watching, when we think of law, again, even our nominee, she was a public defender. So when we oftentimes think of lawyer, we think of courtroom. And you just said, right, in the area of law that you practice, there are not many Blacks, not many minorities, not many women. What's an area of law that you see in the next 5 to 10 years, if going to school, studying law, it would be a great benefit to have more Black lawyers there?
Well, I would say, first of all, that being a lawyer, period, is huge. I mean, even though you're starting to see us in high places, there's still not many of us across the board. I mean, we still only make up about 2% of law firm partners, and there's so many law firms nationally. But if I could choose an industry, one that is emerging, I might be biased. Energy is
right.
huge. I mean, that's all we're talking about right now is the effects of climate change, and really how state to state and federally we are planning to tackle that issue. I also think that tech is huge. Our giants like Google and Amazon, they're trying to take over the world, and we probably want to be part of that, right?
Absolutely. So as we prepare to go our separate ways, first thing first, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for really leading the way. the work that you are doing in every aspect, community, corporate, courtroom. You have really been a source of inspiration for so many. And if no one tells you thank you, I want today to say thank you for doing what you're doing. And also this month, as we celebrate women who are leading the way and telling her story, I want to give you this gift from a previous guest who is an artist extraordinaire. Her name is Janine. And Gigiology is something, this is for you. And I want you to take these cards on behalf of Janine and share those cards with different women who have really inspired you, because one of the things in this month, as we dive deep, Janine and I were talking about the well. It's a place where women gather to be nurtured, a space where women gather, that well of inspiration. And I thank you for being that well for so many young girls and for so many young women, especially in these times that we're in. So hope you enjoy the gift, and again, bring someone to the well as you have indeed benefited from what's in the well. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, wherever you might be, today we're grateful for none other than the president of the Black Women Lawyer Association, and doing an amazing, great work in energy, lead counsel, and 40 under 40 from Crane. But if you don't remember none of that, this is a daughter of God. So thank you again, Nakia Crosley, and stay tuned because the push is on now.
Good morning. I'm Todd Yeary, and this is Due Process. The House of Representatives has once again passed legislation that makes lynching a federal hate crime. From 1877 to 1950, more than 4,000 people were lynched in the United States. While the total numbers vary, the vast majority of those killed by lynch mobs were Black. The Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act would allow for criminal charges for deaths that occur as a result of a hate crime. The bill, advanced by Congressman Bobby Rush of Illinois and a good friend and ally of Reverend Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition, was passed by a vote of 422 to 3. The bill is named for Chicagoan Emmett Till, who was killed in Mississippi for allegedly offending Carolyn Bryant, a white woman. Bryant's husband, Roy, and his half-brother, J.W. Milam, were indicted for killing Till and dumping his body in the Tallahatchie River. They were acquitted by an all-white jury, and after the acquittal, the two men boldly admitted to abducting and killing Emmett Till because they had no choice. Yet years later, Carolyn Bryant recanted her story, though she also claimed she didn't really recall what happened during the encounter with Till on that day. It was the shocking images of Emmett Till's mutilated face and body in an open casket funeral that forced the world to see the ugliness of racist mob violence in America. Senator Rand Paul, who objected to the earlier version of the bill that passed the House in 2020, has indicated that he will support and vote for the current version of the bill now heading to the Senate. The world is watching and waiting. In 1920, Black farmers accounted for about 14% of U.S. farmers. Today, that number has dwindled to only 1.4% of U.S. farmers. Between 1910 and 2007, Black farmers lost 80% of their land. As part of the federal response to the economic damage done to Black farmers and land interests, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has named a new commission whose task is to make recommendations to address equity concerns within the department's programs and policies. The 15-member commission is made up of farmers, academics, lawyers, economists, and policy experts. The troubled history of the department includes discriminatory practices that contributed to the loss of over 14 million acres of land owned by Black farmers in the 20th century. This massive depletion of land control and generational wealth was compounded by disparate access to federal resources and lack of favorable loan terms for Black farmers. The equity provisions in the American Rescue Plan law are intended to remediate some of the harm done by these same policies. However, implementation of that part of the law has been delayed due to lawsuits filed by white farmers who argue that the policy promotes reverse discrimination against them. The commission intends to hear from farmers who have been discriminated against to document their grievances and incorporate them into a set of recommendations for the Biden administration. Many Black farmers have little faith in the commission process and fear that the effort is too little, too late. The first public hearing was on February 28th, with more convenings to take place over the next several months. Rainbow Push Coalition and its Black Farmer Initiative, through our Southeast Regional Office, will continue to engage the administration in ensuring that a proper remedy and restitution is developed as a result of this commission's work. Meanwhile, in Louisville, Kentucky, the reckless endangerment trial that began last week for former Louisville police detective Brett Hankison has concluded with Hankison being acquitted on all 3 counts. Hankison had been charged with wanton endangerment for randomly firing through the apartment of Breonna Taylor and into adjacent units. Hankison fired 10 rounds into Breonna Taylor's apartment through a patio glass door and window during a botched no-knock warrant execution. Defense attorneys focused on the split-second decisions that police officers often have to make in running toward danger. However, prosecutors countered that not a single shot should have been fired at Taylor's home that night, much less shots that would endanger residents in other apartment units. Hankison faced up to 3 years for each count in the indictment. No officer was charged with Breonna Taylor's death, and no other officer was charged in relation to the incident that night at her apartment building. Many who have been watching this trial feel it was a verdict that ran counter to the recent convictions of police officers in Minnesota and was not based on the facts of what actually happened. It is for certain that police reform is still badly needed when it comes to the use of force in certain communities and the accountability that is required for the deaths of innocent people. We will continue to fight for that reform at the state and federal levels. Dr. Paul Farmer, renowned professor, anthropologist, and champion of global health, has died unexpectedly in Rwanda from an acute cardiac event in his sleep at the age of 62. He had been in the country teaching at the University of Global Health Equity, which he co-founded with Rwanda's former Minister of Health, Dr. Agnes Binagwaho. Farmer's work is widely known for his efforts to bring HIV treatment and drugs to Haiti in the early 2000s. Committed to human rights through medicine, Dr. Farmer spent much time in Haiti even while studying for his medical degree. In addition to the Doctor of Medicine degree, Farmer held a PhD in anthropology. At the time of his passing, he was the Kolokotronis University Professor and Chair of the Department of Global Health and Social Medicine at Harvard University. A pioneer of community-based treatments in poor and under-resourced areas, Farmer connected his work with human rights and the need to address the consequences of social inequality and their effects on health, including as the editor-in-chief of Health and Human Rights Journal. Dr. Farmer received his undergraduate degree from Duke and his MD and PhD from Harvard. He, along with 4 of his colleagues, co-founded Partners in Health in 1987 in the Central Plateau of Haiti. The organization also does work in Rwanda, Lesotho, Malawi, Mexico, Peru, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Russia, and the Navajo Nation. Dr. Farmer's life's work is far-reaching, his death untimely, but the model he left the world connecting health and human rights will live on. We send our condolences to his wife, Dee Dee, and their 3 children. This week, President Biden gave his first State of the Union address since being elected in 2020, with the historic milestone of having 2 women seated behind the president, Vice President Kamala Harris and Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The president highlighted the importance of this moment to the nation's future. While much of the speech focused on the ongoing conflict caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the president also highlighted the importance of continued recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. President Biden emphasized the need for expanding American manufacturing and creating new jobs, particularly due to the current supply shortages across the globe. While climate change policies were largely muted and calls to defund the police were firmly rejected, the president tried to strike a serious tone in recognizing that there are several areas of great challenge facing the nation. Among them is the right to vote, to which the president called on the Senate to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. There is much more to dissect from the president's speech, including tracking the legislation that will flow from it. We will continue to discuss, analyze, and engage around these issues and others in the coming weeks. So stay tuned. This weekend marks the 57th anniversary of the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge on what has become known as Bloody Sunday. The images are still shocking from the violent suppression of civic engagement for the right to vote. The assault on voting rights today is not as overt as back then, but the effects of voter suppression are still felt across the country. Even as state legislatures across the country continue to pass new voter suppression laws, while the U.S. Senate refuses to enact protections for access to the ballot box, thousands are again in Selma to remember and follow the examples set by those brave foot soldiers in 1965. Tomorrow, we will cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge again, and this week, civil rights organizations are coming together to retrace the steps of our civil rights champions of that day. Whether you make it to the march or not, we all have a stake in what the march represents, both then and now. Register to vote, encourage others to register to vote, and get ready to vote in great numbers to affirm our collective commitment to the citizens' most prized possession, the ballot. We will have more on this week's activities on next week's show. Until then, that is this week's Due Process. I'm Todd Yeary.
We're excited to get more people involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. If you're interested in impacting public policies, if you believe in the scholarships that we give to thousands of students each and every year, you can become a policymaker by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now. For an annual membership of $35, or if you're a student or senior, $15, you can help us make a difference in the lives of millions. How do you become a member? Visit our website at rainbowpush.org and press join. Or maybe you'd like to support us. You can text the word PUSH, that's PUSH, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give any amount you feel comfortable giving. You can also call us at 773-256-2775. Or go to rainbowpush.org and push donate. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you.